live. It's not. That's not right. It's that one. Okay, go.
Hey, we're talking about Ahsoka up next on Geek Out SA.
Do not attempt to adjust your YouTube video. We control the stream.
And welcome back to Geek Out SA. It's Friday. It's not Friday, it's Saturday.
It is Saturday.
Yeah.
I appreciated being Saturday. The switch was for me, so thank you very much, because on Fridays...
I have to figure out a new catchphrase, because...
Did your catchphrase come from the old school 99.5 Kiss? It's Friday and we don't give a meow, 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 meow.
That might have had an influence.
Might have had a little influence, and you didn't
have
realize
I
it was
didn't
like
even realize it.
in the background of your mind. So, and we were on Fridays for a long time.
Yeah.
But it just...
we were on Wednesdays to start with.
We were, yeah. But it
So.
just got to be like work day. The end of a work day was just...
And then they had all the shows on Wednesdays. I was like...
Yeah.
So
So then we moved it to Friday, and
it started okay for a while, but then...
Fridays were great when we had Stuart.
Mm-hmm.
When Stuart was here and he would come over and we would all go like out to dinner together after and watch shows together after. That was probably the best time that I had being on the show.
Right.
Was when we had Stuart.
But we're back. We've been on hiatus again. So life just kind of gets in the way, and it's hard to come back.
Yeah.
When we haven't been doing it for so long. We just
Well,
weren't used to it.
Yeah, and we're still dealing with a lot. So I was thinking about it the other day, and as of like 2 days ago, it's only been 4 months since you almost died.
Yeah.
Like, it's really only been 4 months. If you think about 4 months in the scheme of everything, that's like nothing. So we're just trying to adjust to this new way of life.
Yeah.
And I have changed and gotten a new job. So that's another big adjustment, because I was like, well, we don't have enough on our plate, so let me get a new job. So I think that we're just...
But you're still teaching, so...
I'm still teaching. I'm just teaching high school now, which is really different for me. So it does take up a lot of my energy and a lot of my bandwidth, because it's something completely different. And there's different expectations, and I stay later. Although I get to go in later, but not by a lot.
But we're glad to be back.
Yeah.
We're talking about Ahsoka today, so we've watched the first 6 episodes of Ahsoka.
Yes. So let me tattle on Vince just for a minute. Okay. When Disney says that Ahsoka is going to come out at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, they're not kidding. They mean at 8 p.m., the new episode is going to hit. Mm-hmm. Vincent knows this, okay, but at 7:50, at 7:55, at 7:59, he's checking just to see if maybe somebody made a mistake. I think he actually checked at 7:30 the other day.
Yeah.
Started at 7:30, and then I was like, come on, dude, let's just watch something else for just a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then he checked at like 7:50, then at 7:55. I was like, let's just watch an episode of Groot, because they're like super, super short.
Yeah.
So we did. We watched an I Am Groot and then went over to Ahsoka. But literally at like as soon as the clock turned 8 p.m.
We got over at like 7:59 and it still wasn't 7:59. It still wasn't there. And then right at 8,
Boop.
Switched over and boop, here's a new episode.
I was like, man, when they say 8, they're not kidding. They mean 8 o'clock. So
it must be done systematically.
Oh yeah, there's got to be something in the background that's like timed to get it to go there and everything. So, so as all things Star Wars and basically all things that we watch anytime ever, Vincent loved this before we even got started watching it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, because we saw, and we didn't even go back and rewatch Clone Wars and Rebels. But this is an extension of that.
Yeah, it's really helpful if you've seen those.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I have a deeper connection to the show because we've seen Clone Wars and Rebels. For me, it's been a long time, and I'm not the most focused person. So it probably would have behooved me to go back. I mean, I'm starting to remember stuff as we watch the episode, but a lot of the times I'll have to ask Vincent, such and such, and did this happen, and did that, to make sure that I'm like on the right track. And he's all, shh, yes, it's that. Okay, shh. No talkie during Ahsoka. No talkie during anything, actually, for Vincent. He like absolutely hates it. So, but
Well,
yeah.
especially with stuff there's a lot of talking that you gotta listen to.
And this is very much talk heavy, especially at the beginning, so that you can see how the story weaves together. I'm still tired after all this. Did you check and make sure the sound was okay? I just want to make sure that we're good. You could hear us?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm producing, as you can see. We didn't even ask Aaron because we just kind of... Our kid came into town and he was like, hey, y'all haven't done the show in a while. And we were like, you know what? We haven't. We should do it. And we have Ahsoka to talk about.
And I think we had Black and Silver Diamond that also asked about it
Like
last show. When y'all gonna do it again?
Yeah.
So
Here
now,
we are.
today,
We're doing it right
here
now.
we are. Hello.
So tell me, Vincent, because obviously you were gonna like this, right? No matter what.
Yeah, no matter what.
No matter what. But what is something that is standing out to you right now? That's something that's like keeping you coming back every episode.
That Ahsoka is taking it upon herself to come back to be a Jedi.
To be a Jedi or to be Jedi adjacent?
The way it seems is she's coming back to be a Jedi, but on her own terms.
Right. Well, and we kind of...
Because at this point, what is a Jedi?
Well, and that's what I was going to say. So we kind of learned an episode ago, maybe, or so. So if we're spoiling any of this for you, you might want to wait, and if you're planning on binging the whole thing. But we kind of learned something that we've all kind of thought for a while now, is there are Jedi who are still Jedi, because they're not really Sith, who have turned their back on the religious zealot nature of the Jedi Order, right? But they still want to do what's right. They still want to use their connection to the Force to make things better. They still feel like they have a higher moral code. They may be a little more like fluid, maybe. Like they may dip their toes in the anger a little bit.
Right.
Because we've seen that a little bit with Sabine, right? Because we know that Sabine has some attitude problems. And so I think we're seeing this gray area of Jedi, right? That's never
like been really introduced per se.
I mean, they have, but people had to have been paying attention.
Right.
Because technically, if you think about it, Luke is one of these. Because he's not he's not temple trained. He wasn't trained from a youngling.
No.
So he's a different kind of Jedi.
But then you can say that so is Ezra, because he wasn't temple trained either.
Oh, I think Ezra definitely falls into this category. I think Ezra definitely falls into that category. And I think with the movies, we see some of it, and they kind of alluded to it, because when Luke is training Ben Skywalker and the other younglings that he has that may have included Grogu, right? He's trying to kind of return to this old school Jedi Order. He's trying to return to like a temple training. He's trying to return to like all the writings of the Jedi. And one of the things...
when we saw in like The Mandalorian, Ahsoka wasn't really all for that. She was distancing herself from the Jedi at that point. She was still distancing herself.
Even when she was a youngling, she distanced herself from that. Like she wasn't...
Well, she would be okay with like, but she questioned more during the Mandalorian that you can see, apart from like leaving the Order altogether.
I felt like in Rebels we really started to kind of see her. And again, it's interesting because in the live action show, they take us back to some of those parts of Rebels, but in the live action nature. And you see how young she really was when she's in the midst of a war.
Because when we see her, because we see a flashback, we see her in the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
She's 14 years old in the Clone Wars.
And she looks young.
And she looks really young.
She looks like a child. Like, if you think about it, 14-year-olds are like 8th graders, 9th graders. Right. And here she is at war, right? Mm-hmm. And so in the cartoon, and then especially even in the live action, you see why she's questioning the Jedi Order because of some of the stances that they're taking during the war, because they're in war, they're in battle. And so we see how that impacted her kind of upbringing as a Jedi, if you were.
Right.
And so we see why she has this kind of almost resistance to it. But that was one of the things that I really liked in the new movies that people really hated, but I really liked, is when the tree gets burned with all the Jedi writings and Yoda's laughing about it. And he's like, it's just a bunch of old junk. Like, what? That's not what it means to be a Jedi.
Right.
And I think we think of Yoda as being part of the Jedi Council and being part of this religious zealots of Jedi, basically, as it were.
But he was.
But he may not have always been. And that's the thing, is I think maybe with Rey and Ezra and Luke,
because
we're trying to move away from some of that.
The reason that the Sith came to power again under the Jedi Watch is because of the Jedi dogma that they've always run, because they were doing it in secret, and they were paying attention more to the politics of things where they shouldn't have been. They had no business dealing with political stuff at all.
And so that's where they're taking us to an extent in Ahsoka, because...
Or even in war. They shouldn't have been in war.
No. Because this character, who's the mercenary, the man, I don't remember who he is.
Ray Stevenson?
He's there...
With the
yeah.
gray beard.
He's there on the...
He's Balin.
Balin. He's there on the planet to find something that's going to bring truer balance than this Sith Jedi.
Do you think he's going to turn? Because right now he's an Inquisitor.
Yeah.
He's doing stuff for the Sith.
But he was Jedi.
He was Jedi.
Before. So I'm curious to see what it is that he's looking for, because they haven't told us yet. Mm-hmm. Like, what he's looking for and where is he going, that he believes that he knows something that's going to bring true balance rather than this dogma and this dogma.
Right.
It's going to be something that's more in the middle.
Great.
But I think you're always going to have people with dogma. You're always going to have people like the Emperor that want that ultimate power, that want to use the Force to get that power. And then you're going to always have people over here that feel like, well, I have to do what I have to do to make sure that this doesn't get up here. And so then my dogma begins to clash. I think no matter what anybody does, it's just always going to be like that.
Well, it has to be like that because the Force is a balance.
Yeah.
It's always a balance. There can't be light without dark. And
But Balin seems to think that there's something that he can find that's going to make it all one gray area constantly. And I don't think that whatever he's...
And that's what I think, like the Sith lords of the Masters, like Darth Vader, that's what Anakin went, because he wanted to do something better. And he gets seduced by that side.
Right.
And then eventually it makes him turn.
Sorry.
To the dark side.
Well, we see, I like seeing that we can have these Jedi, quote unquote Jedi, right? Who are predominantly good, But they sometimes let the darkness come in a little bit, and it gives them kind of a boost of strength, right?
Yeah.
It's that adrenaline rush. You see that with Ahsoka when we first saw her in The Mandalorian, and she's fighting. She lets some of her anger go a little bit in there.
Yeah.
We know that she's concerned about seeing it in Sabine. We've seen Rey do it. We've seen Luke do it.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see where they're going to go with this.
But and that's the thing. That's the whole thing. You can't not be in balance either, as what a Jedi originally should have been. And because the Jedi were derived from the Jedi, and they eventually split off because they went, oh, we have to be all good, and then the Sith, well, we have to be all bad. Or not necessarily all bad, but it came to be, I want to think about passion.
Yeah, I want to think about power and passion and using those to step myself up. Whereas on the Jedi side, it's more like I want to use my skills to step everybody up, right? So it's more self versus group, which is another kind of tropey type thing, but it is, I mean, it is what it is. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of that in there.
What was your favorite episode?
I don't know that I had a favorite episode. I've had some problems with some of the episodes.
I know you had some problems. The 6 that we saw, which one was your favorite?
I don't know, because I don't care what anybody has ever said. I have always loved Hayden Christensen as Anakin. I thought he did a really good job. I thought he was really nice and angsty. And so I was really looking forward to when we saw him. And you just, I mean, cheered so loud when he called her Snips. Like, I was like, he's going to lose his mind. But I was a little...
I was like, he's got to call her Snips. He's got to call her Snips.
Yeah. And it was great, but I was a little disappointed because it was almost like they either held him back or they didn't let him go rewatch himself play this character. I felt like I lost some of the passion that he had as Anakin. Like Anakin
in the movies.
Yeah, Anakin, and even in Rebels, the cartoon, like Anakin always knew what Anakin wanted. Anakin knew what Anakin stood for. He knew what he thought was right or wrong.
But was that Anakin though? Because she goes in, or
but it's
was
like
it in
an
her
echo.
mind?
It's like an echo of Anakin, right?
It's an echo, but is it what she thinks of him as being?
Rather than
is that clouding her judgment during all of it? Or was it part of the Force bringing Anakin into that thing to finish off her training, because she did have to do the trials.
Yeah.
And she did have to face her fear. But did she do that before when Darth Vader almost killed her?
When she was in there with Ezra in Rebels, yeah. So I wanted to love that episode. I thought that episode was probably going to be my favorite, and I wanted to love that episode the best. I don't know that I've had a favorite episode yet. There are little pieces.
Mine definitely was 5.
Yours was 5?
Yeah.
5 was your absolute favorite?
Yeah. I think they did what they had to do with Anakin.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely nice to see him again, and I liked some things about it, and liked
they made
some
him look like the Clone Wars Anakin.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely tell it was CGI, but still.
Well, some of it, but he was there.
Yeah, he was there, but they tried to euthanize him. Oh, that's not right. Euthanize means
not euthanize.
Don't euthanize him. We like him. He's good. They tried to make him younger.
But that's the first time you get to see Hayden Christensen as a master, because all through the movies, we didn't realize he had a Padawan during that.
Right. We don't get to see any of that. That was kind of something that we get to see after the fact.
Yeah.
Which is weird because he's still pretty much Ben's Padawan throughout most of the first movie, so it's weird that he had his own. They were kind of like a little trifecta there. Mm-hmm. Which is sad, because they were kind of like a family unit. Like you especially see in the Clone Wars in the cartoon that they were like a little family unit. And so I think of all the Star Wars shows so far, Obi-Wan's has been my favorite. And seeing Ewan McGregor be Ben
That was
and
really
stuff.
good. Andor is really good.
Yeah.
I think Andor is like because it's not necessarily anything that we've seen before. I mean, we saw the movie. What was it called?
Just blanked.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know. But Andor is going to be more, and that was my least favorite of all the Star Wars movies, because that one's going to be very war focused.
Right.
And that is not my jam. I really prefer the storylines of the people and
Click off. Yeah.
Sorry. I was trying to click the buttons without I was trying to look at y'all and click the buttons, and I pushed my thumb over too far. I'm sorry. We were not over.
Not yet.
I prefer the human interactions between the characters more than the war aspect. So, I am so very tired, y'all. I am so sorry. It was open house this week and all kinds of stuff, and I am just an exhausted lady. But anyway, so back to Ahsoka, because we kind of derailed there. So one of my favorite things about Ahsoka is the space whales. I mean,
yes.
I've got to
I
say,
like the space whales because it's an ode to Rebels.
Yeah,
Because that's when
we find out about
Rogue
these
One.
space.
Rogue
One. That's when we find out about these space whales is in Rebels. But I love the space whales. I love that she uses the Force to speak to them, to ask their permission, to use their special talents. So I do. That was one of the things that I like. I like the whole utilizing the Force to communicate with other species.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like it when Sabine is talking to her dog horse thing, whatever it is. Because it is very dog-like, and so like when she's mad at it and it's very naughty, it hangs its head and everything, but she can talk to it, and then I love creatures in Star Wars. Like I love all the creatures that they come up with. So I just love the cute little adorable snail people. They're so cute because they kind of sound like Jawas, but they have like little shells on their backs and they have the little antenna and stuff. And then it kind of made me laugh because then it made me think about the what's his name? The wrestler that's in the Marvel thing with the antenna girl, and he tells her how ugly she is.
Oh, yeah. Mantis.
Yeah, Mantis. So they kind of made me laugh with their little antenna because I was like, I could just imagine Drax telling them how ugly they were, even though they're super cute. So I love all the creatures that they give us. Like, I love that they still continue to give us these new creatures that they've come up with that are on these different worlds that have things to do with that. So I think, well, first you tell me if there was anything. Obviously for me, there were things. What was the biggest disappointment or the biggest miss for you in Ahsoka? You want to think on it in a minute?
I have to think about that because.
Okay, I can tell you what mine was.
What is yours?
Okay. I really thought it was cheap and campy and really lame when she was in the spacesuit outside using her sabers and stuff. Like, it just seemed over the top, like too campy for me. I was like, it's just too much. Like, it's just too much.
But they do a lot of that kind of stuff in the comics and the books.
Yeah, but it was not.
They're kind of like in the comics, you can, like Vader can exist out in space without breathing.
Yeah, that's fine because he's got his breathing apparatus and everything.
But that's not because of that. He was in space and could not breathe.
Because of the Force.
Because of the Force.
I'm not saying anything about using the Force. It's just like you know, our weapon system is down, so let's put a Jedi outside of the ship in a space suit and let them use their lightsabers to like chop up passing like flying spaceships.
That was Luke's moment turning off his targeting machine.
But that was different because he was using the Force to like feel when the time was right, to like feel the energy of everything kind of lining up. It's different than this just like campy, like, I don't know. I thought it was too much. For me, it was too much. Maybe I'm just being too picky.
And still, maybe she's not because she's not as strong as Luke.
I don't want any of them outside of a spaceship with lightsabers trying to fight off other spaceships. Like, it's lame. I don't want to see that. I don't care who it is. I don't care how strong they are. I'm not opposed to her being in a spacesuit. I don't want her outside in a spacesuit using her lightsaber to fight off spaceships.
But
like,
that was their only defense.
Dumb. It's dumb. I hated it. That was their only
defense.
I hated it. It was dumb. It was the worst. I almost quit the series right there. I was like, and I'm done. This is so stupid.
You're too fickle with that stuff.
I hated it. It was so, I don't know.
I thought it was fine.
I'm sure you thought it was cool. You're like, oh, she's out in space with her lightsaber. Yeehaw. I don't know. I hated it. I hated it so much. So
now I'm gonna be on a thing where I need to get her sabers, her new ones.
Because you don't have 16 sabers already that you need to put together.
Yeah, but I need that one. I need those two as well.
He doesn't need them. Not even close.
I need them.
So there was nothing about the series, nothing that you've been like, oh, that was super cringe. I didn't really love that. I wish they had changed that.
I think there was kind of like a lackluster part when we finally get to see Ezra.
Because he looks like Space Jesus?
Yeah. Well, not that he looks like Space Jesus, because I expect that to be, but just that it was kind of underwhelming. They didn't play it up very well. He just walks out, oh, here I am.
Oh, here I am. I'm Ezra. I've been trapped on this planet way out in space for I don't know how long, because I'm like an adult now.
And the only hint that you get about it is that he still has the 2 scars on his face from the Inquisitor.
Because that was part of something that I had forgotten kind of from Rebels, but got kind of from context. He was also fairly young when he takes that. I didn't remember like exactly how old he was supposed to be, but I remember him being young.
He's as old as Luke.
So
that's why they've always been playing it, that who's the actual I know it's Darth Vader. Darth Vader is the chosen one, but they thought Luke was going to be the chosen one, and they were also saying Ezra, since it was more at the same time, he could have been the chosen one as well. So Ezra could be almost as strong as Luke at this point.
So Ezra is...
Because apparently the connection to the Force in the galaxy that they're in now is stronger. Supposedly.
So Ezra is Luke's age.
Yeah.
But now I feel confused. So in Ahsoka, the part of her lifespan that we're in right now, Luke has already stopped Vader? Or not yet?
I'm not exactly sure on the exact timeline. It probably.
Okay.
Probably.
But Luke is still out there somewhere, potentially like training with Leia at this point. Right. And then Leia stops doing it. And then we fast forward to Rey. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I get a little bit lost in like where we are in the timelines and who's where and...
Well, I don't know because I think she faces off against... I think she does face off... She's going to face off against Vader again.
So Vader still isn't done yet.
So maybe he's not done yet.
So then Ezra can't be the same age as Luke.
No, Ezra is the same age as Luke.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
So he's just supposed to be maybe like in his early 20s right now in the series, like he and Sabine.
Yeah.
Supposed to be like in their early 20s. Okay. So then this would be about the time that, close to the time when maybe Luke is getting ready to, because it takes Luke a while.
Yeah.
To go through.
Well, because he's going to search, during this time, he's like searching all the temples for all the Jedi books, all the Jedi writings.
Does he do that before he stops Vader or after?
After.
So if this is before.
Or maybe it's before. Maybe
concurrent.
This is right before Return of the Jedi.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I need to kind of look up the timeline and see where are we at. Like, where is Vader?
But even then, Luke wasn't that strong on Return of the Jedi. He wasn't as strong as we saw him in The Mandalorian.
But the reason Luke is not very strong, or we don't see Luke have a lot of strength, though, is because he never got to be anybody's Padawan. Not really. He got like what? 5 minutes with
Yoda,
and that, where these other people have gotten years and years and years.
Yeah, I think he got like maybe 3 months or something.
Yeah, but still, it's not really the whole.
Yeah, but then you look at Rey. Rey got nothing, but she was extremely powerful with the Force.
Yeah. Well, I think there's.
I think there's just times where the Force tries to balance himself. So at this point, the Jedi were kind of like on the lower end. So the Force had to boost up a Jedi with a lot of power real quick.
Yeah.
To balance it out again.
I mean, I guess sometimes I think about it from like a scientific lens. And so if being sensitive to the Force is a genetic anomaly, right? So you're going to have some people with the genetic anomaly who get the trait and they've got it maybe, down.
Because they have all the midichlorians.
Because of all the midichlorians. They have it down in their line, and so maybe they're getting it from their father and their mother,
right.
And so maybe that then makes it stronger for them, just like you would have any other kind of trait, that you would get stronger. But I guess I look at it from not a magic lens, but it's just a genetic anomaly type lens. It's kind of like being a mutant, right? Like you're Force sensitive, so that makes you a mutant. So yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it's a good watch. I love Rosario Dawson. I think she's a fantastic actress. Mm-hmm. I really like the little girl that is Sabine. She's doing a really good job. Excuse me. We haven't really seen Ezra Jesus do much yet, so we'll find out what that's like. And then the lady that you told me is Ewan McGregor's wife in real life, who's the green lady. I always forget her name.
Oh.
I like her too.
Well, she was in Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
She was Ramona.
She was Ramona in Scott Pilgrim. So I really like her too.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Yeah.
Hera.
And then I like the little guy who was from Kim's Convenience, who's really probably too old to be like flying a starfighter, but I do like that kind of rebel nature of some of the other characters that are like helping Ahsoka along the way. I do like that they're like Han Solo-ish, right? Mm-hmm. Where they're like, well, we have orders that we're gonna kind of sort of pretend we didn't hear. So I like some of that aspect of it too. Now, is the same guy that did The Mandalorian is doing this, or no? It's somebody different.
What are you talking about?
Well, it was Dave Filoni. Did he do The Mandalorian as well? With Jon Favreau, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, he's not necessarily the director, mm-hmm. but he has a lot to do with what's happening.
Dave Filoni or Jon Favreau?
Dave Filoni.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He's the one. He was the in charge of the animation for the Clone Wars.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah.
Okay, so then he has a really good connection to the Clone Wars, which is why then we see some of that translated over into Ahsoka. Which, of course, you have to see it translated over because that's when you first find out about Ahsoka is in the Clone Wars, the cartoon. So, is there anything that you can think of that you remember from the cartoon that you're hoping to see in the series?
Which one?
The Clone Wars cartoon. Like, I kind
I
of feel
wonder
like...
if we're going to get to see Yoda again.
You think Yoda?
The Yoda's Force Ghost.
What are you looking up? You're very content.
I'm looking up what the timeline is.
Oh, we can look that up later and we can discuss it later.
Okay.
Because you're missing out on the audience. You're not connecting to them. Say hi to the audience.
Hi, audience. And if you have any questions or comments, please let us know.
No, there was something else I was going to say, and then I got distracted by you being distracted. Oh, well, since we've seen all of the other cartoons that kind of trailed off from the Clone Wars, and we've seen like the Bad Batch and stuff like that, and we've seen Rex and some of the other troopers, are you hoping to kind of see some of the troopers maybe come into this as live action?
That would be cool. Yeah.
That was what I was thinking. Like, I would
Yeah.
love to see them do some of that connection.
Yeah.
Because we haven't seen Bad Batch in a while. We don't know what happens with Omega and everything, but we know that they're there in that timeline,
Yeah.
like trying to right wrongs and stuff and trying to do better. So, and the Bad Batch is not the only ones. There are other troopers, Clone War troopers, that kind of have dropped the mantle of being a trooper and have gone, just like we see with Finn, like they don't want to do what they're being asked to do. And so I would love to see Ahsoka meet up with some of them at some point and maybe have some interaction with them.
Right.
And do some of that. So that's the only other thing that I was thinking, like, of all the things that we've seen in the Star Wars universe, that's kind of something that I would like to see kind of bleed in that we haven't seen from the animated universes come over as well or as much into the live action universes.
Right.
So,
like on episode 5, I really like when Ahsoka and Anakin were in the whatever it's called, the forced timeline thing.
I don't know what that thing's called.
It's the same thing where Ezra pulled Ahsoka out of the battle with Darth Vader.
Yeah.
In Rebels.
They're in the Speed Force. Just kidding. Wrong show.
It's the Force.
It's the Force. I love it. So you didn't have any... You weren't feeling any disappointment. I did. You know what I will say about that episode that I thought that they did really well is you see her pain. You see Ahsoka's pain of seeing him again and going back to some of those memories and remembering how close they were and how much she cared for him, and then seeing the pain of her knowing that she's going to lose him.
Well, she had to deal with that when she was fighting him in Rebels and got pulled out.
Yeah.
And that was a hard show to watch.
Yeah, because when you're watching Clone Wars, like, that's one of the things that kind of drew us in, I think, a lot to Clone Wars was those relationships between Ben and Anakin and Ahsoka. It's those relationships and how Ahsoka is kind of very similar to Anakin in a way, and she very much believes in what she believes in, and she's gonna kind of, even if you're her master, she's going to give you pushback if she thinks you're wrong and if she thinks you're doing it incorrectly and if she think, and it's so she and Anakin very much had those parallels.
Yeah.
And so
But during the fight, you could tell the difference in power and skill with Ahsoka and Anakin.
well, Anakin is just the bomb.com. I mean,
And,
let's be really honest. I mean, for me, of all, I know you're a Luke guy, but for me, I'm a Darth Vader girl all the way. Like, there is something very magnetic about him.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something, even though you know his power comes from a really bad place, there's something very alluring about that power too. To imagine yourself being able to have that kind of power and wield that kind of power. Like, let's none of us lie and say, wouldn't be really nice if, we could be out there in the world and somebody's ticking us off at work or something and we just went, and they shut up because we force choked them,
Or not force choking, but just like...
Just like,
They're
be
shut their
quiet.
lips.
Just shut it. Just, I can make you shut it, Or I can just push you across a room or lift you off your feet if I have to. Like,
And he
and
was
without...
what we saw was very powerful, but not as powerful as he could have been without that suit.
Right.
If he had a suit that actually didn't cause... Because that suit caused him pain.
Right, constantly.
Constantly. And that's why... And Darth Sidious did that on purpose. So he wouldn't be as strong as him.
More powerful than him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but it just...
So he lives in a complete stage of being in agony.
Right.
All the time.
But he also just has this swagger too, where he's like, he knows how strong he is. And he's like, you don't get to come up on me because I know how strong I am. And he loves Ahsoka enough to warn her and be like,
She held her own, though.
She did. And she definitely has some power too, but I just don't think anybody's Vader.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think anybody's Vader. Talk about a show I'd watch all day long. I would watch a show with Hayden Christensen from the point where he goes through, and Ben's got the high ground and he gets cut and he gets burned and everything and they take him from that point and like seeing his emotional struggle and his turmoil and how he takes this pain of losing his brother and his best friend, of losing his Padawan, of losing his wife and thinking he's lost his children, of losing his limbs. I mean, you have to really think about everything that Anakin went through before he becomes Darth Vader. So to think about Sidious, Sidious is in his ear feeding him all this stuff like a snake, right? And turning that into power. So I would watch that storyline.
Yeah.
I would watch that. So anybody out there who's making Star Wars stuff, if you could make that for us, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
I know there's some fan fiction that had done that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and there's some really good stuff too. But no, I'm really enjoying it. I can't wait to see the next episode.
I like it. I'm on the fence.
Yeah.
But I'm always like that though. I'm a little bit pickier than Vincent is. I'm like, meh. It's
I like Star Wars.
No, I do, and I do too.
It's all together.
I do too. I think you and I love it probably more than a lot of people. We don't tear it apart as much as other people do.
No.
I don't tear it apart for the same reasons as other people do. Oftentimes when I tear it apart, it's because I don't feel like the characters are true.
Apart.
They will. They will.
But they can't because it's true to its own story.
Yeah.
Because this story was derived from Clone Wars.
Yeah. They'll find a way. Some of the zealots always find a way. I think they just want to hate everything that's not episodes 4, 5, and 6. Yeah. Okay. Well, if we just stuck to 4, 5, and 6, we wouldn't have any of the rest of this, which has been fantastic in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Maybe you just want to stick to 4, 5, and 6, but I'm living it up in this world. Like, I am totally enjoying everything that they're giving us. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, so. Boba Fett, meh. It was a meh. It was good. It had moments like Ahsoka's had
Yeah.
for me. It had moments where I was like, meh. And then some, like when he's with the sand people, I really like that stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah,
That was really good. No, but that was Ahsoka.
was Ahsoka.
Definitely check that out. It's a lot of fun. Did you show any of the?
I didn't. Did you want me to queue up some of this stuff here at the end? I forgot all about it. I
It's
thought
too
you were going
late.
to tell me to.
Yeah.
Okay. If you haven't seen the trailers and stuff, go watch them. They're on YouTube.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen the show, just go watch it.
Yeah.
You don't have to binge watch it. Go watch the first 6 and then wait till the rest comes out or whatever. Or go watch 2 at a time.
But thanks for checking this out. Had a lot of fun. I'm Vince.
And I'm Colleen. Geek Out SA. And now the outro.